how saddened I am to admit that the semester is almost at a conclusion here. My name is Amir Williams. This assignment is for Business Law 340. Professor Davis. Um, so this assignment is for an oral argument that is centered around a multi-vehicular collision. I will be representing Jordan in this particular case, and without any further ado, allow me to commence, if you don't mind. Yes, good afternoon. I'm Amir Williams. Today I will be representing Jordan, the pickup driver. As discussed priorly, this case is about allocating negligence fairly in a chain reaction crash. I will provide my position. Initially, I guess that's what I'm obligated to do. Jordan is actually my position, or what I deem fit for this particular case, is that Jordan is 0% negligent or liable for Tina and only minimal for Claire and Mason. Okay, so now that I've gone over my theory and my verdict preview, as well as who I will be defending in this case, allow me to go over the most relevant facts. When I first did this assignment, I actually stated a bunch of facts that I thought could be deemed relevant in this case. But after diligent thought, I realized that a lot of the things that I was highlighting there's a lack thereof relevance in regards to their meaning and their value to my argument. So what I've done is I've actually deliberately configured two different chains of I guess you could say reactions, or chains of action in which I have deemed most relevant in regards to my facts. So for chain one, chain one is for Tina, and for Tina's chain of causation, here I have Elena drifts while reaching into her glove box and clips Marcus, which leads to Marcus speeding. And Marcus was already initially speeding, forgive me, going 75 and a 55. He was also using his phone. He ends up losing control. He ends up hitting Tina. Tina was weaving, she wasn't signaling, which will be later. We will get into why that would be deemed her comparative fault. And then as for chain two, for Claire and Mason, I have that Jordan brakes. He loses control. He hits the pole. Electrico's pole was deteriorated and flagged, but it was not replaced. The pole ends up falling. Claire was tailgating, plus Mile High's overdue brakes, which, equates to her not being able to stop. And then last but not least, Mason's concussions, which occurred due to the fact that the car seat was improperly installed, which, as you can imagine, could be very severe. But now that I've gone over my initial chain events, allow me to define the CASI instructions that I've used, or that I've decided to use for this particular case. And then after that, I will also go into applying them to these particular causation chains. All right. So as the first CASI jury instruction that I actually use, I'm just going to call them instructions for now. The first instruction that I utilized for this particular case is CASI 401, which is negligence is failing to use reasonable care under the circumstances. So keep that in mind for later. I have CASI 400, which is plaintiffs must prove negligence, harm, and substantial factor causation. Substantial factor causation is a super vital component of my argument, at least. So let's make sure that we keep that in mind as well. I have a CASI 430, which actually states that causation requires a substantial factor, not a trivial or remote cause. Super vital as well. CASI 405, if the plaintiff was also negligent, the jury assigns plaintiff a percentage of the fault. We'll be getting into that later as well. CASI 406, the jury must allocate percentages totaling to 100%. We also will be getting into that later. And then CASI 3700, Brightway is responsible for Marcus if he acted within the course and scope of employment. Okay. So now that I provided my juror instructions of preference, allow me to get into who was negligent and why. I'm going to go over these really briefly. Elena was negligent because she actually drifted lanes while distracted and clipped Marcus. And keep in mind, all of these negligences, I don't know how to pronounce that, but I hope you get what I'm saying. Plural of negligence. I went by configuring these due to abiding by the four components of negligence as they go: duty, breach, causation, and damages. So, but this really quickly is just a quick summarization of how I found each party negligent. All right. So Elena was negligent because she drifted lanes while distracted and clipped Marcus. Marcus was negligent because he sped and used his phone, lost control, and hit Tina. Tina was comparatively negligent because she was weaving without signaling. Jordan may be negligent to a limited extent because his worn tires and brakes contributed to losing control after braking. All right. Electrico was negligent because the pole was deteriorating, flagged for replacement, and was never replaced. That's insane to me. Claire was negligent because she followed too closely and couldn't stop. Mile High was negligent because the rental brakes were overdue for service. And Brightway shares responsibility for yes, Brightway shares responsibility under the vicarious liability due to Marcus being under the scope of employment. So now that we've gone over how each party could potentially be negligent, allow me to apply each and every jury instruction to my substantial factor causations. All right. So right now I'm going to be applying Cassie 430. Okay. What this is going to be doing is separating Tina's injuries from Claire Mason's injuries. So under Cassie 430, the question at hand here is actually whether a party was a substantial factor in causing the harm. Okay. That's how I had to utilize this. That's how I had to think about this and distinguishing what was, how does this substantial factor actually correlate to this specific jury instruction. Okay. So the way that I did this was the way that I applied this to Tina was the fact that Tina's injury event is actually the SUV motorcycle collision in which Marcus hits Tina. Okay. Marcus's speeding and phone use are substantial factors because they lead directly to the loss of control and impact. So keep that in mind. Elena's initial clip is also a substantial factor because it triggers the whole chain. And due to all this, or in the accumulation of all this occurring, the person that I'm defending, Jordan, is not a substantial factor for Tina because Jordan never hits Tina and the pole event occurs afterwards. Okay. So the fact that Jordan's events in which him hitting the pole occurred after Tina completely, in my regard at least, completely leads to the assumption in which Jordan is not a substantial factor for Tina's injuries. Okay. So my conclusion for that would be that Jordan should be 0% liable or 0% negligent for Tina's injuries. Okay. As to my Claire and Mason substantial factor causation chain, yes, I will also be applying Cassie 430 to the same chain as well. Due to the fact that Claire and Mason's injuries arise from the pole hazard and inability to stop. Electrico is a substantial factor because the pole was deteriorated and not replaced, as you can imagine. Them, not fixing the pole, and that completely, what word am I thinking of there? And that, not correlating, but that occurring directly, after Claire and Mason's injuries, that's why that is considered a substantial factor. Claire is a substantial factor because she was tailgating, which reduced her stopping distance. Mile High is a substantial factor in this regard because their overdue brakes reduced the stopping ability of the rental. And then Jordan is a link because he struck the pole, which is pretty bad. But actually, compared to those causes, Jordan, in my opinion, is actually minor. Compared to all those negative attributes. I'm sorry. But anyway, and then as to Tina, here I also will be applying Cassie 405. And for here, I will be applying her comparative fault here. Simply due to the fact that Tina's weaving without signaling supports assigning Tina at least the tiniest percentage of comparative fault that reduces recovery. Okay, so keep that in mind for later. We're gonna have to be assigning her at least some percentage of fault that reduces her recovery. Okay. So now that I've oh yes, so now that I've gone over exactly my causation splits, allow me to connect these splits into my Yes, allow me to connect my Cassie 430, which explains my causation splits, and then as well as my Cassie 405, which supports Tina's share, because the fact that she partook in even the slightest percent of the negligence, basically um, assumes that she has to, partake in at least the tiniest percent of the allocation. Which Cassie 406 requires 100% allocation. Yeah, so allow me to go into the breaking down my particular allocations that I deem fit for this case, and then I also will be going over my Cassie 3700, which supports Brightware's share of the hypothetical allocation in this case. So under Cassie 406, the fault must total to 100%. How much time do I have left? 10 minutes. The fault must total to 100% allocation. So under 406, as I discussed, so for my argument, Marcus should be allocated 30%, Brightway should be allocated 10%, Elena should be allocated 15%, Tina should be allocated 15%, Electrico should be allocated 10%, Clara should be allocated 10%, Mile High should be allocated 5%, and then Jordan should be allocated 5% due to the fact that he only hit the pole and he didn't have any responsibility for or negligence towards Tina. And then yes, under Cassie 3700 or 3700, Brightway is responsible because Marcus was acting within the course and scope of employment. And then my counter argument, one of the counter arguments that I believe someone could potentially say is that someone could potentially argue that Jordan actually hit the pole fell, so Jordan caused Claire and Mason's injuries. My response to that would be that under Cassie 430 and Cassie 406, even if Jordan is actually a factual link between Claire and Mason's injuries and the pole falling, the major substantial factors are Electrico's weakened pole, Claire tailgating, and Mile High's overdue brakes, which keeps the person that I'm defending, Jordan, in this particular case, a minimal for Claire Mason is still 0% for Tina. Yes, so if you do need me to reiterate that, I can, but I understand this undoubtedly. Last but not least, my verdict to ask for this case is that Jordan would be 0% liable or negligible. Yes, Jordan should be 0% liable for Tina's injuries due to him not being a substantial factor, and then Jordan should also be a minimal for Claire and Mason. Thank you. Amir Williams, Business Law 340. Professor Davis, I loved your course, the way you taught it. Thank you so much, Professor. I'm so sorry I couldn't make it. I admire you so much, and I just wanted to let you know that this course and your teachings have positively affected my life for the greater good. So, without any further ado, Amir Williams, hasta luego.